Hello and good afternoon. We are here with Simona Ksoll, business consultant extraordinaire and a personal transformation mentor who specializes in successful women over 40 who want to radically transform their life. And most of all, Simona has done it all herself, having been for a long time one of a stellar career in Hollywood as a Sony executive, and having then had the guts, the vision, the foresight, and the courage to completely transform her life. And now she's helping others do the same. So thank you, Simona, for being here. I'm so excited.
Thank you, Dr. Silvio, for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Tell us a little bit more. What does it mean to have a radical transformation? It sounds...
Well, it means different things for different people. And typically it's women in their 40s that after a event in their life, be it a divorce, an unexpected layoff from an executive position, or because now the kids are out of the house, are looking to change their life and business in a way that is very different from what they've been doing for the past 20, 30 years. So it's typically, women that want to write books because they have that inside of them, women that want to start their own business after exiting a corporate career, women that are moving countries, or women that are going in a completely different field, and women also who are retiring early in their early 50s, and they have this desire inside of them that they want to create something different, but they have been in this life that other people told them that's the safe thing to do. Go for this, you're going to have a nice pension, you're going to have to prestige, but deep down inside they've always known that there is something else that they want to do. And those are the kind of women that I help, and that's why I call it a radical transformation, because what is changing very dramatically is that image of self that that woman has, and that is why it's radical. Like for me, I was a marketing executive at a Hollywood movie studio, and I moved to Mexico after my divorce and became a marketing consultant and transformational mentor for women in their 40s who want to do the same, change their life and create amazing things in the process. And it's never too late. You can do this in your 40s, in your 50s. And I even have a client in my 60s who wrote a book, became an acclaimed published author in her 60s. So any of you that are listening that are thinking it's too late or I can't possibly do that, think again, because anything and everything is possible.
And we have more possibilities nowadays as women, especially once we have already been successful. We have had our accomplishments in life, but in the past, there might have not been a second path, but now new paths open up. But as you said, sometimes we feel trapped by circumstances, by our own self-image. And I think this is where you come in to radically transform our lives, to create the vision and make it real. There are certain traps or boundaries that we have to overstep, which might not always be easy to kind of break free from our own old self-conception. Will you tell us a little bit more?
Exactly, because we've been conditioned into being a certain way. How we've grown up, our parents might have told us, don't be so loud, don't do this. As an artist, you can't make money. As an author, you can't make money. And then we begin to believe that, right? And then this continues in school, this continues in how we choose a career that is a sensible thing to do, maybe not the thing that we're naturally inclined to doing. And then it gets to a point where we're in our 40s and older, where we begin to rethink that, right? And sometimes there's a dramatic event that can happen in a person's life. Like in my case, it was a divorce that really, because the carpet's ripped out from underneath you, gets you to think, but what else is there? And then we remember. And we remember that deep down inside, there is this voice that wants something different, that wants to become the speaker, the teacher, the author, the woman who travels, whatever it is. And we don't know how to go about that because for 20, 30, 40 years, we've been conditioned to be a certain way. And it's kind of unlearning that being a certain way and finding back to yourself, to your true essence, and setting limits and boundaries with other people. You know, in my case, I'm a recovering people pleaser and peacemaker in the family because I grew up in an abusive household. I had to unlearn that, because when you go your own way, as you know, Dr. Sylvia, you know, when you go your own way, you are faced, you can't do right by everybody. And you have to grow a thick skin, and you also have to stand up for yourself and say, you know, this is what I want, this is what I'm doing, and nobody else gets to tell me that I'm not able to do that, right? And that's a bit of a learning. And when we've been so conditioned into not doing that for a prolonged period of time, it's scary for us to go there, because we think, oh, when I do that, when I speak my truth, when I speak up for myself, then people are not going to like me. I'm not going to be accepted. And that's one of the innate things that we strive for as human beings, to be accepted, you know, because we are, you know, we want to find love and acceptance from the people that surround us, and we're afraid to lose that. And so that's why we put ourselves into a box and appease, so to speak. But there comes a point in a woman's life where she wants more, and rightfully so. And that's when she has to unlearn, you know, the pleasing, the peacemaking, the ducking down, and really come out of her box and explore the world and be, you know, in her natural essence. And that means often breaking with rules and breaking with limitations that society imposes upon us. I mean, you've gone a very unusual way. You know, you if you want to share that, you know, you immigrated to the United States and got a really coveted position, and then became a real estate investor. So this is not a very usual path for a woman, you know.
I think we both went unusual paths, and for that reason, perhaps can be a mentor. I was also thinking, because of the university, everyone expects, you know, as young 18, 19, 20 years, you go off to college and you come out an adult, you know, so the education, and there's a transformation built into that educational. But what do you do when you're over 40? You know, yes, you can re-enroll in university, but most of us do need a mentor, and we take it for granted when you are 19 to go to college, to pay for an education, and you come out transformed. But this is the same with women over 40, and sometimes the educational system, having, you know, been a professor at UCLA for a long time and Pepperdine, is good to some extent, but not necessarily when you are over 40. Then you need a different kind of education, a different kind of mentorship. Even in the hero's journey, you know, where you set out as one person, at the end you are a transformed person. In the heroine's journey, you have a mentor that guides you through the process of transformation. So this is, in a sense, where we come in. I have also a question about, so you make the decision to step out of your comfort zone, to leave behind the approval of others, which is so scary, because our survival in ancient times was dependent on being part of the group. Now, if you step out of it, it's, you know, your survival instincts get triggered. For that reason, especially if there's another woman who can help you through that, it's very helpful. But there are, throughout this transformational process, moments of doubt, fear, and where you still have to break. You may have broken out of your old circumstances, but you still have to break out of mindsets and mentalities that may still keep you stuck. Maybe you would address that for us.
Yes, I mean, anytime that we step outside of our comfort zone, the further we get away from the familiar, the scarier it gets, right? And then all of our core fears are being activated. And then it's very easy to just wanting to run back into safety. But we got to understand that we've already walked so far outside of the comfort zone, it's cost us, right? Like, we have overcome ourselves and we have charged forward, that if we were to run back into the comfort zone, we're gonna be in a familiar place, but our desire, you know, still is seeking fulfillment. And then we have to walk ourselves all the way back up to that line again where we were, and it's gonna cost us even more. And, you know, I found personally that mentorship was really helpful for me. especially my first two mentors were women, and then I had a male mentor, because they can really guide you when you stand at that line where, you know, it's really scary and you feel you're breaking with the world, and you can't possibly take the next step forward because there's a big bad monster that you make up in your mind that's going to await you on the other side. And it can be very visceral. Like I've had moments where it was so visceral, but that mentor, while they cannot, you know, cross the line with you, they can really guide you, and they
Yes.
can help you strengthen your faith. They can rationalize with you, and they have done it before, right? So they can kind of see the obstacle course that you're navigating, and they can help you shorten the timeline to get to the other side. And one of the biggest aha moments for me was that the first time I stood at the line, when my mentor said, take the next step, and literally, you know, this was leaving my corporate job. I thought I was going to black out as the words came out of my mouth that I'm putting in my resignation. It was so visceral. But on the other side of that was something totally unexpected and actually magnificent that I didn't see coming. Actually, my boss at the time said, I'm so happy for you. I cannot even begin to tell you how happy I am that you made the decision to leave, because I'm miserable here. And then what transpired on the other end, this was in 2016, I was invited to stay on with the company as a full-time employee while already living in Mexico, while building my client roster. And I ended up working for the company for 5.5 more months with full benefits, with a full salary. I could not have expected that, right? Like I couldn't see that coming. And there's been other moments in my life where the fear was so big, and I thought, oh my God, if I take the next step. But I want to encourage you to the listeners here, if you're at that line, know that whatever you anticipate on the other side is something that fear has conjured up in your mind. What you're actually going to get is something way more liberating, way more beautiful, that you have no idea what it's going to be because it's so cool and your mind cannot even conceive of it just yet. So,
right.
But that's where, for me personally, mentorship was very important, because I was conditioned into, you have a job, make good money, you do the things that are the right things to do, and you don't walk away from a prestigious job with bonus, with 5 weeks vacation, with, you know, working with all these people in the entertainment industry. And to do what? To move to Mexico? That's just insane, right? And while it's still work, let's be really honest, because in any business, as you know, Dr. Silva, we got to work, right? But it's very different when you do it for you. You build your own prosperity in the process. You get to help people. You get to work with people that you love, where you feel that you're making a difference, where you feel you are appreciated. And it's actually bigger than you, because I mean, at least for me, and I'm sure for you too, with the work that you do, you know, that when you see that it impacted a person in a positive way, that's just, for me, it's a very joyful feeling to have been part of that. Much more joyful than to contribute to the prosperity of a big conglomerate,
Yes.
right? So,
and prosperity is a big thing because we want the transformation, but we also both stand for women's prosperity and wealth creation. By the way, before I go more into that, I want to say what's
yeah,
special about
it's a
you
very
also,
important topic, I think, you know, to address.
and what's so special about you also, you are a transformational mentor who is both familiar with the business side and the psychological side, because mostly mentors, they know how to transform someone's business or mindset, but you combine both, you know, because it goes really hand in hand. It's like a wheel. You know, you take the first step in business, but now your mind plays tricks on you.
It's up in arms.
Yeah. So you have to have, there's an intricate dance between both these transformations, the nuts and bolt transformation of business, finances, wealth, but also simultaneously it's transformation of, you know, the mental and identity transformation.
The self-image, how we see ourselves, how we perceive ourselves.
1 second, I have to stop. And also, while we were talking about how to overcome the trap of the past or situation where we are stuck, it's also interesting that all too often as women, we don't set our own boundaries. So while we don't want to be confined by other people's boundaries or society's expectations, a lot of time on the flip side, we don't have our own boundaries. And I work a lot with money archetypes, and you and I both work with individual approaches to transform your life. We never just give a generic or general answer. And so the money archetypes are interesting because each archetype has their own personality and their own sets of strengths and problematics or pitfalls, including how to set boundaries. And I know you had a client recently that was a typical example of maverick. Mavericks love freedom. Yeah. And in a sense, they can be so successful because they don't accept the boundaries society sets for them. Like Steve Jobs, he went out and did something no one else had done before and transformed, but also in a sense, being out, you know, in the wilderness, being out sometimes on your own. But yeah, once in a while, the maverick has to work within a corporate world. And that can become very confining. And I think you had a perfect example of a client recently.
Yes, and I have to say, like, ever since I worked with you on understanding money archetypes, I see them really applying in all areas of people's life. Yes, they're money archetypes, but how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so I see how these patterns of the money archetypes then play out in other areas of a person's life. And what you're referring to is a client who was in a consulting function and who had entered into a consulting agreement with somebody that didn't hold up the agreement and was very no boundaries, right? Yes. And this person was very constrictive, right? That the client of this client was very constrictive, very micromanaging, very looking over the shoulder, and then on top of that, not honoring their agreements. So of course, my client, who has the archetype of maverick, who, you know, appreciates freedom and does their best work on their own when they're left to their own devices. I mean, they can work under direction, but what brings out the best in them is when you just let them go after you give them clear direction, right? And so what transpired was obviously a clash, and that client stood up for herself and spoke her truth and walked away from actually a substantial amount of money. Wow. So, but that is, you know, now that you and I got to work with you to fully understand, I can see why that client had that pattern, because it's her money archetype, yeah, but it also transpires in the profession, in her professional life. And yeah, you know, it's basically not my way or the highway, but it is, freedom is a huge core value for that archetype. So
which can be a major plus, but if you're forced as a maverick to work in a corporate environment and you know you're a maverick, you can preactively or preemptively create boundaries, clear boundaries between your work time and your freedom time, because the worst thing for maverick is when the work time kind of bleeds into their free time, yeah, and they feel literally suffocated because the freedom is so important to them. That's where they live and breathe. And so to have that clear boundary, okay, this is where work starts and this is where my freedom starts.
Yes, and you know, as long as you can clearly communicate that, and are unattached to the outcome, it's a win for you, you know. I mean, what we have to be mindful of is how we communicate that, because sometimes emotions can be so triggering, and then we have this urge to fall back or to engage with something where it's a complete no-win situation. Like in this particular instance with this client, you couldn't. The best thing was to walk away, because quite frankly, the effort and energy wasn't worth it, you know, even though a substantial amount of money was involved. But the way I sort of broke it down is that there's a great lesson in this. And the lesson is, when there are red flags, heed them, like even early in the negotiations, in the conversations, when somebody doesn't want to put a verbal agreement into a contract, that's a red flag. Walk away from it, no matter how much money is offered, right? Because when I come from a place of integrity, the other party comes from a place of integrity, then why would you not want to put that in the contract?
Yes.
And give yourself also the opportunity to have lawyers read through the contract to point out, hey, if this is not clear language, this could be, and if that person is not willing to put that in there, then you know that you're not setting yourself up for success. And that is a boundary then that I encourage women in business, or even women in a corporate setting, to draw in the sand, to, like, we all come from integrity and authenticity. And I have found in business it works best when that is reciprocated, because
Yes.
otherwise, but for me, it was eye-opening to see, because I had worked with you on the money archetypes, and I have an eye now for it, that it plays out in other areas of a person's life, and particularly also in the romantic life, and in how we create our professional identity, which, if you want to speak to that, is, for me, it's a fascinating topic.
Yeah, and just to come back one more sentence about the situation, when that person knows I'm a maverick, they will not blame themselves in that situation. They know it's untenable to work with someone who takes a demand on all their private life. On the other hand, let's say you're a connector archetype, they take their identity not from freedom. The maverick takes their identity, their freedom is their identity. The connector takes the identity from the connection. The 1 + 1 is not 2, but 3 for them. So the identity in the connect, they can deal with someone who makes demands, let's say a live-in nanny who would be available all the time, because they feel the identity is part and parcel of the unity. So if you know your money archetype, you know what jobs or what expectations you can enter into and which one wouldn't work for you. Vice versa, the ruler, maybe that person that you had worked with, her employer was a ruler. The ruler thinks the empire is them. And so everyone in that empire, whether it's properties, but also people, are part and parcel of themselves. They have to be careful, because they can be all consuming, instead of allowing that other person who lives in their empire to be their own person. The ruler thinks it's all theirs. On the other hand, the ruler can make mistakes, because they are so all-consuming of the empire that they have a hard time letting go of, let's say, there's an employee who undermines them. They are loyal to the extreme where they should let go, or they have made an investment that's not good, which they should cut their losses and let go. The ruler has the hardest time, because the identity is their empire. It's literally like cutting off something of themselves, and so each archetype has a different challenge of how to set boundaries with themselves and others. And also, of course, each have the amazing abilities to create wealth, which, to just quickly sum up our conversation, we are all about transformation and freedom, but not freedom that is nothing left to lose type of freedom, but freedom to create our own wealth. And prosperity can look very different to all women, but we really stand for that each woman has their own potential to create their own wealth, and to step into that energy and into the possibilities. Once you know your personality type is, money archetypes helps with that, you can really leverage it where it's most effective for you.
Yeah, for me, it was really fascinating to learn that from you. And, the assessment that you offer was just eye-opening, because I recognized myself, and, you had no idea, like,
No.
you didn't know me in that sense. So it was just really fascinating to learn that. And I see it now. I pay conscious attention to it, you know.
Yes.
And I'm really mindful of the pitfalls that all too easily I could fall into, you know.
Yes.
And it's not fun. you
Yeah.
know, so,
And the maverick can be a hothead who says, okay, there are your marbles. I'm off in my own,
yes.
jungle with my machete, creating my own path. But sometimes the maverick can benefit from a team, because if you cut your path through the jungle alone with the machete, someone else may fall into your back. But if you have a team member, you're stronger,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
once the maverick knows that, they have that tendency, I'm going to do it on my own, but they realize sometimes, you need a wingman or wingwoman on your side.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
maverick.
Yeah. Now this is fascinating. So where can people get that assessment that you offer?
Yes, I will offer it as a free gift to our listeners, and the link below, and they can sign up and take their own assessment. There are 8 money archetypes. Each one, there's no bad archetype. All of them are great. You have a strengths, but also potential weaknesses. And there are 3 top archetypes. Sometimes the top is like way ahead, and then the second is far behind, and the third again. Sometimes the first and the second are very almost tie, so yeah, then you have to look at how these 2 archetypes balance each other. And then please let us know what your top archetypes are, and we can dig much deeper. And I believe you equally have some beautiful gift to our listeners.
Yes. So if for anyone who's listening and who's thinking that you might have a blind spot that keeps you allowing people to infringe your boundaries, I'm going to give you, I think it's a free recording about how you can discover your blind spots so that you can actually stand in your power without feeling bad that people are not going to like or love you, except that you're not accepted anymore, but that you can set effective boundaries and feel empowered in doing so. Because I think that's really important for us women, that we get over this conditioning that we have, that in the event, we stand our ground, we're no longer accepted by the tribe. So I want to offer you that so you can investigate if you have a blind spot. It'll also show you how you can overcome it. And, because we all need to band together as women to lift each other up and to help us get out of the traps and the limitations that we were wrongfully placed into to establish our own prosperity. And that means a happy and joyful living in the process.
And blind spots are such an important topic because we don't know we have them.
Oh,
we do all have them.
yeah.
And what a generous gift of you, because I know that was not freebie before. So you're very generous to our
You're welcome.
listeners.
You're welcome. Yes. I used to sell it, but I think, in the spirit of generosity, I want to offer it to your listeners for free.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And
you're so welcome.
Hopefully we'll do it again sometime.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me on. It's such a pleasure to talk to you. And I'm so impressed by your knowledge and wisdom around the topic, Dr. Sylvia. It's been hugely enlightening for me.
Thank you so much. Equally here, you are courageous and you can lead the path for so many others. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.